Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, hit the witness stand today in the former president's hush money trial. It did not disappoint. Cohen, the prosecution's star witness, at one point detailed the arrangements to allegedly kill a story about an alleged secret child of Trump's. Now, Cohen has said in the past that he would take a bullet for his former boss. Cohen described then National Enquirer publisher David Pecker's role in Trump's 2016 campaign. And Cohen testified, quote, "What was discussed was the power of the National Enquirer being at the cash register of so many supermarkets and bodegas that if we could place positive stories about Trump that would be beneficial and we could place negative stories about some of the other candidates, that could be beneficial." Now, as an example, Cohen detailed the arrangements of the Karen McDougal story. McDougal is a model and actress who had said that she had a months-long affair with Trump in 2006 and was paid $150,000 by the National Enquirer to keep that quiet. Cohen said when he told Trump it would cost $150,000 to, quote, control the story, Trump replied, quote, "No problem, I'll take care of it." Cohen also describes helping to pay off Trump's doorman in 2016 when a former Trump Tower doorman was trying to sell a story that Trump had a secret child with a former employee. When Cohen brought the story to Trump's attention, Trump said, "Make sure that the story does not get out," and, quote, "handle it." But Cohen's credibility has been questioned. He's a convicted liar and disbarred attorney. The center of today's testimony is Cohen's role in allegedly arranging that $130,000 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels. She testified last week that she'd received the payoff in 2016, just weeks before the presidential election, to stay quiet about the sexual encounter she claims to have had with Trump a decade earlier.
Heavy emphasis has been put on Cohen because the reimbursements he got for doling out money to pay Daniels are the basis of the 34 counts Trump is facing for falsifying business records. Trump's defense team has sought to discredit Cohen, calling him an admitted liar and telling jurors that he's obsessed with getting back at Trump. And while prosecutors may be banking on Cohen as the star witness that could shape this outcome of this trial, they will almost certainly be forced to reckon with Cohen's checkered past. He pled guilty in 2018 to federal charges related to the payments for lying to Congress, which could come out to benefit Trump. So I want to ask you about that. I'm a little on the fence about the extent to which the idea that this man is a kind of a proven liar, an admitted liar, is going to discredit him in this specific case, because the argument up until this point has been he's been willing to lie for Trump. Now he's being asked to make a statement against his interest, which in the context of the law are seen as more credible statements. For example, a lot of hearsay evidence, generally speaking, isn't admissible. But if you were heard at the scene of the crime saying, "Oh my God, I did it," or "I can't believe I ran that red light," because the idea is you wouldn't normally make a statement that would be to your own detriment, that it's more likely to be a credible statement than a lie that, you know, something that's in furthering your interest, which is more likely to be a lie. "Oh my gosh, I'm totally innocent," right?
I think the idea of Trump's legal defense, what they're trying to say about Cohen or cause the jury to think is that he is trying to rehabilitate his reputation, and thus, in order to make himself a well-respected or you know, to recover his reputation, he has to denounce Trump, or he's out to get Trump, and that, you know, maybe he has arranged these things on his own and without Trump's consultation or something like that, and you can't trust what he says about it regardless, and he's not trustworthy, and he has every incentive now to, you know, he has a podcast and books about, you know, the truth about Donald Trump, that kind of stuff. He wants to be a hero to the Trump resistance, and that explains his behavior. Again, whether that's going to be persuasive, I have no idea, but I think that is their effort. It's important to note that he has not been offered any kind of plea. You know, he already went to prison. He's not been offered some kind of legal carrot by the prosecution for doing these things, but that's not the same as saying he has no incentive to flip or to give testimony. Again, he's trying to rehabilitate his image. So I think that's what's going on here. Now, it's not clear. You know, I'm here. This has happened this morning. You know, the reaction is kind of trickling out for how his testimony was received. I think we'll have to maybe give it another few hours before we really know.
Yeah, I mean, is there really any credible argument here that this is all, what, Cohen independently, individually deciding to take it upon himself to bury the story from coming up out of the goodness of his heart without any direction or relationship with Donald Trump. And then the campaign chooses to reimburse this in a tangible form that is concretized in these now allegedly fraudulent business records, just because, I mean, I'm struggling to understand what the kind of credibility arguments about how germane the credibility arguments about Cohen actually are when you have this physical evidence that you have to contend with. Now, whether or not kind of the legal case for how to turn kind of a misdemeanor into a felony via these business records holds up is a different kind of a question. But the crime itself, the underlying crime,
well, and whether it counts as a campaign finance transaction has to do with this specific language of the statute.
But the kind of fact pattern of how this went down doesn't really seem to be especially in dispute, which is part of what we're talking about when we're talking about the Stormy Daniels testimony, right? Are we really having a debate about whether or not the two of them were in the room together? Right. That's really not material, because even if it never happened, you can still pay to kill
it doesn't matter.
Story that you think would be detrimental, even if it were a lie.
Right, and in fact, the child out of wedlock story is in fact not true.
And they paid to bury it, an untrue story.
And of course, the National Enquirer guy had said at one point, his recollection was Trump saying about one of these matters that it's not worth paying for these things because it gets out anyway and it doesn't work. Although now Michael Cohen is saying that Trump did greenlight the payment, said take care of it. That was the correct thing to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Another interesting aspect of this that I was seeing reported is that Trump's potential VP candidates are making pilgrimages to the trial. So J.D. Vance was there today. So it's increasingly, again, you don't know, but insiders, what people are saying is that it's down to Tim Scott, who is my prediction, J.D. Vance, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio is in the mix. And then you are hearing some stuff about Doug Burgum, this North Dakota governor. And there was some chatter recently about Nikki Haley again, but Trump actually went so far as to put out a statement saying, I wish her well, but she's not in consideration for the VP slot. So it seems to be settling on Tim Scott. And so Tim Scott is planning to visit the trial, I think, next week. J.D. Vance was there today, then made remarks, thunderous denunciation of Democrats trying to jail Trump, that sort of thing, really, really courting the king's favor.
Do you have a favorite among those picks?
Do I have a personal favorite?
I mean, who do you think is most likely?
I think Tim Scott is most likely.
Still?
Yeah, I've never really wavered in that.
My issue with that is that he has been, in a lot of ways, a front runner through this whole process, which suggests to me some ambivalence from Donald Trump about why he wouldn't just pull the trigger on Tim Scott.
The betting markets, which often they're not, completely accurate, but are often a little bit ahead of just pundits trying to guess, have had Tim Scott solidly ahead basically the whole time, or for weeks and months. So I'm taking that. I do think the diversity aspect of it is something Republicans will. You comment on this, how they deny they want identity politics, but does have a certain amount of appeal. He seems to like Scott. He said good things about Scott on TV. Now, J.D. Vance is also a very, very pro-Trump kind of Republican, happy to speak on Trump's behalf.
I don't see Vance helping.
Vance is Ohio, and he doesn't need the Ohio is solidly in the. J.D. Vance seems even more. I mean, these people mostly agree on everything, so it's hard to look for differences. J.D. Vance seems like he would make the very MAGA people, online MAGA people, extremely happy, but those people are already very happy with Trump. So it's in some ways it's playing to your base, which might be something Trump does, but I'm not sure what it necessarily adds, other than he's a very effective rhetorical arguer person, but I don't know. And
frankly, seeing how an issue like abortion played in Ohio, which is very good for Democrats and very bad for Republicans, I don't know that you necessarily even want J.D. Vance being a face of that sort of a fight as you go back to relitigate all of these issues in these states, when we finally, hopefully, eventually have a real electoral contest where the two candidates are talking about the issues and not just kind of making insinuations about each other from their various corners of the media space. All right, let us know what you think. Stick around. We've got more Rising coming up next.